Hey everyone, John Lorden here. Thank you for joining me on another episode of Brainscratch Searchlight. This one being recorded for July 18th, 2018, and I want to give a very big thank you to the numerous brain scratchers out there that suggested this case to me. I finally have been able to get to it. It's one of those cases that has a very simple version of the story, but quite honestly, by the time I got through the end of my research, I was wondering if that simple version is actually the truth or not. Let's go through everything that I reviewed and see what you guys think by the end of this as well. Today we're looking into the case of Donna K. Cloud, and we're starting with NamUs. Date of last contact is October 25th, 2016. Of course, that is a while ago. Certainly cause to be concerned with this case. Donna went missing from Splendora, Texas at the age of 19. She is now 21 years old. She's a white Caucasian female between 5 feet and 5 feet 2 inches tall, weighs between 95 and 110 pounds. For the circumstances, last known location, they're saying Splendora, Texas, though according to her family, they traced some of her electronic communication. It's not quite, I'm not positive if they traced a cell phone or not. That's one of the weird angles on this story is some places are reporting she didn't have a cell phone. Other places are saying, yes, she always had a cell phone. But her family did trace her location history, and they also mentioned that it ends in a place called Spring, Texas. So if you're in either of those areas, or if you have friends in either of those areas, please let's raise exposure to this case, share this video with them. But for the circumstances of her disappearance, last seen on Tuesday, October 25th, 2016, before going on a date with an unknown male she met online. Now, like I said at the start of this video, that is kind of the simple version of this story. Let's keep going and see what you guys think. Physical description: for hair color, brown. For eye color, brown. She does have several tattoos. Faith on the inside right forearm. A tattoo across her right collarbone that says "Love is enough." A diamond tattooed on her ring finger and a cross on her index finger on the same hand. And there's also mention of some script on her right back shoulder, but unfortunately it doesn't say what is written in the script. Clothing and accessories, it's noting that she carried a hard case she called a wallet. Now, one of the things we're going to hear in this is her family says that they actually found her wallet. The way this is talking about a case, I think this is talking about potentially a cell phone case. But like I also mentioned, we're not even sure if she had a cell phone or not, but just take all this information with a grain of salt at this point. Clothing, last seen wearing a burgundy blouse, possibly t-shirt, blue denim jeans with a hole in the right back pocket, and white canvas shoes. Jewelry, no known jewelry worn. No transportation. According to the story, she was actually picked up for this date from her parents' home, or her father and stepmother's home. Over at the Charlie Project, I just wanted to bring this up in particular because of the excellent job they always do with collecting photos. We can see many different photos of her here that have been taken, I think most of them from social media, but we do get photos of the tattoos as well, so I really wanted to give you guys a chance to see that. You can see the diamond that's on her ring finger with the cross on, actually I believe that's her middle finger, not her index finger that the cross is on. And the "Love is enough," it's in a reflection here. So it's reversed, but you can see what type of script it's written in and how it lays right next to her collarbone. In the details of disappearance section, Cloud was last seen in Splendora, Texas on October 25th, 2016. She left home that day to go out on a blind date with an unidentified male whom she may have met online. At this point, I don't think people really debate if she met this person online or not. There's a bit of a debate of, was this someone that she met on Facebook or potentially on a dating site, in particular, Plenty of Fish. Outside of that, I think there's a debate of, is this story actually true at all? Did she meet anyone? Which we're going to get to. Cloud's father got a text from her on October 26th. The text read, "I will see you in the morning. The date went great. He's super nice. I will call if I need anything." She said she'd be home on the 27th between 11 and 11:30, and her family could meet her date then. Interesting thing to note, she still didn't mention this guy's name at all. And according to what the family says, they have no idea who this person is. I have seen some interviews that were conducted by Jerry Dean of Missing in America with the family. In those interviews, they don't really mention the person's name, but it appears to me that they know who the person is. It's supposedly a friend of a friend. At least that's the impression I got. They don't quite clearly come out and say, we know who the guy is, at least that I caught while I was watching it. Unfortunately, she has never been heard from again. Going over to cron.com, this is an article from Tuesday, November 1st, 2016. So we've got it just a number of days after she had gone missing. And also take a look at this photo. The photo on the right, I've heard from several people, they're like, wow, it doesn't even look like the same girl. I don't know if this photo is much older or if it's just because it's showing her without all of her makeup done and all that. But it does strike me also that I'm not positive that I would identify her as easily, especially based on the photos that I've seen, if I saw her maybe without all her makeup. So please take good care to note this photo as well. A Texas woman went on a date a week ago, contacted someone the next night, then vanished. She went on a date with a man whose identity is not known. Investigators believe the two may have gone to the Texas Roadhouse in the Kingwood area, but aren't sure. We're going to hear who she contacted the following day and what exactly she said as we roll forward the articles here. Over at CW39.com, this is an article from November 1st, 2016 as well. Quote, I found out that she didn't even know the guy after she'd already left, Daryl Beatty, Cloud's father, said. And I made the comment to her through messaging that that's not a very smart thing to do. She said, I'm going to get Redbox movies, go back to his house, Cloud's stepmother, Linda Hornback, recalled. She said, I'll probably be back in the morning. If you don't hear from me by 2 a.m., call the cops. We don't know what he was driving, who he was. We never saw a vehicle, never saw a face, never really heard a name, Beatty revealed. Some of her friends claim the man was from Liberty, Texas, and the couple left in his car, but they don't know what type. Very strange. There's a couple things in here that really kind of grabbed me. One thing in particular is it seems like there's two lines of communication going on, that she's messaging with her father, and this is the day after she went on this date, and she's also communicating with her stepmother. But why is she telling her stepmother, if you don't hear from me by 2 a.m., call the cops? Isn't that just a little bit of a weird time for you to have a check-in with a parent of yours? Are you really going to keep them worried until 2 a.m. when you're telling them, I'm going to see you guys the next day? Wouldn't you just kind of maybe give them a phone call at the end of the night, maybe 8 or 9, just say, hey, I'm fine, I'll see you guys tomorrow. Or say, if you don't hear from me, tomorrow morning when I'm planning on seeing you guys, then call the cops. I don't know why 2 a.m. would be a particular check-in time. For me, I have a little trouble with that. And let me also say that one thing that's very clear, especially if you watch the Jerry Dean interviews, which I will have in the sources down below right at the top, the family has gone through what they believe is cyberbullying. Of course, they are being accused by several people, and I struggle because when I started all this research, I started by watching those videos. I didn't get any weird feelings about her family at all. But as I went through the coverage, there are some things in particular that are being reported by police spokesmen. And the way that the coverage is covering this, I can see why people are indeed suspicious. Does that mean that I think that they really could be potentially involved in her disappearance or not? I'm going to leave up to you guys, but it really moved my needle from there's no way these people are involved to, well, okay, after what I've reviewed, yeah, it kind of makes sense that you have a bunch of people coming in and questioning if you're involved or not. I don't know. That's at least the experience that I had while going through all this. Moving back to a different article at cron.com, this one from November 10th, 2016. And here we see another look for her that some people would say is probably somewhat different as well. And we can see the tattoo. This might even be the same photo that they took for the Charlie Project tattoo, but you can see it there kind of on her clavicle. Several sightings of a woman matching Cloud's description have been reported in the Cleveland area, but they are unconfirmed and the missing person case remains open. Last week, a rumor began circulating social media sites suggesting that Cloud had been recovered, but that is not the case, according to Lieutenant Brady Fitzgerald, spokesperson for the Montgomery County Sheriff's Office. Quote, "We are still pursuing leads and our deputies are actively searching for her," Fitzgerald said. So what's going on with this? Basically, we're getting a false safe confirmation. The father talks about this in length in the interviews as well. There is a private investigator. We're going to learn a little bit more about him later in this article. And the private investigator was donating his time to work on this case, and at one point sent the father a message. I actually froze the video so we could read the message. This is from the PI to the father. "Your daughter is alive and fine. She doesn't want to speak to you because of y'all's argument. However, she is not at risk." Now, the father actually admits to them having an argument before she left. And the way he talks about it was like, well, we were kind of always arguing. That's just, family business, essentially. But keep that in mind while we're rolling through this. "I am not working this case. The sheriff's office still has it open until they physically put eyes on her. They can't close it, but there is no foul play and no harm done. She is in Cleveland with a male friend. That is all I will disclose." So if you guys had a private investigator that was working for you on a missing family member case like this, and you got that particular message worded in that particular way, would you assume that that meant that he actually found her and made some type of contact? I know for me, I probably would. I probably would assume that there was some contact made here. Unfortunately, that is not the case, as we're going to see as we continue with the article back at cron.com. The circumstances around Cloud's disappearance have led to a lot of finger pointing, mostly on social media and particularly at her farrell, Daryl Beatty, who claims he was criticized for setting up an online GoFundMe account to help with the search efforts. Let me just say at this point, I have seen this happen in numerous cases. People do get suspicious of other people sometimes when they open GoFundMe accounts, and I don't always agree with why people get suspicious in those cases. In many instances, the families have to stop working or miss big amounts of work because they're looking for their loved one. They still have bills. They still have expenses. Printing posters is not free. Printing T-shirts is not free. Trying to hold a vigil, all those kind of things can be a lot of money. And I don't really know the financial status of this family. But even if I did, I wouldn't try to assume if they needed the money or not for a search for their loved one. But according to some comments that I've read about this, people were really critical of Daryl, and the GoFundMe was actually frozen at one point, possibly because of this false notification that she was actually safe. See, Daryl reacted to that in a bit of a strange way. He made a big Facebook post where he lashed out at her. He was kind of expressing that he was hurt by the fact that she would do this, but then found out later that maybe that confirmation wasn't so solid. People began saying it was a scam for money. I could not care less about that. I just want my daughter to come home, Beatty said. I don't want the money. I don't want a single dime of it. I just want people to know she is still missing. And what about that Texas Roadhouse in Kingwood? I'm not sure if it's Kingswood or Kingwood, because I think I've seen it different. However, according to her father, the surveillance video does not show Cloud at the restaurant. And he also did talk about that in the video as well, that I guess he has the security camera footage from that restaurant. They've looked through it from top to bottom, and they don't see her showing up to that restaurant at all. And the father commenting on when he heard about her being seen. When I heard she had been seen with a male friend in the Cleveland area and no foul play was involved, I was relieved to know she was okay. It took me a few hours to even believe she was okay. I was so hurt she would do this. Shane Stewart, a Houston-based private investigator, was among a group of volunteers who tried to help law enforcement early in the investigation by passing on information. Stewart said that he has since backed away from the case because of inconsistent information from the family and his concern that her disappearance is being used for financial gain. Now, if he's just talking about the GoFundMe, that thing raised like $360 or something like that. It doesn't seem accurate to me that the family would have faked this in some way so that they could pull the big scam off of ripping off a few $100s from people. It doesn't really seem feasible. But what I'm really curious of is Shane stating that the information was inconsistent, because it seems like some comments we're going to see from law enforcement seem to kind of support that from their perspective as well. Stewart says that Cloud's case has been, quote, so ridiculous that I want zero involvement in any other missing adult case in the future. So keep in mind, this is a guy that went from the position of doing these cases for free to now he doesn't want to do any missing adult cases ever, specifically because of whatever happened to him in this case. That seems like a really far jump from one extreme to another, and I'd really like to know more details on why that jump happened. Unfortunately, I haven't found a whole bunch of great detail on that. He believes that a heated argument between Cloud and Beatty through text messages prompted her to leave. Some people claim she is doing this to hurt her father, but she is hurting everyone if she is still out there, Stewart said. Do I believe she is alive? Yes. Do I believe she is in danger? No, but I hope I don't have to eat my words later. Stewart said the alleged sighting of Cloud in the Cleveland area placed her with an unknown white male in a red four-door car, but again, these are unconfirmed. So essentially, Shane Stewart did not see her, did not actually get in touch with her. I believe he heard of sightings of her that seemed like she was in that area and maybe drew a conclusion based on his investigation and the rough conversation he was seeing between her and her father. It's really unfortunate that he wrote that message to her father in that way, because I do think it's fair to assume that if someone read that message, they would think that some type of confirmation had actually happened, when in actuality it doesn't appear that it did. Over at abc13.com, what happened to a 19-year-old mom? Yes, I didn't quite mention it yet, but she is also a mother to, I believe he was 4 at the time that she went missing, a young 4-year-old boy who was staying with his biological father at the time that she went out on this supposed date. Her father, Daryl Beatty, and grandmother, Donna Brock, want answers. Quote, she said she would be over on the 27th between 11 and 11:30 for us to meet this guy. Well, that was the last communication we had with her. Today makes 71 days that no one has heard from her that we know of, said Brock, her grandmother. I know someone out there knows where she is. I mean, people do not vanish. There was also an appearance on Live PD that was about this. And first of all, I stopped it at this particular place because I want you guys to see what's in her hand. Definitely an iPhone. And according to her grandfather Brock, that is interviewed in this piece, she always had that phone anywhere that she went. It was constantly in her hand. She was constantly working social media. She was all over that phone. But he also gives us a little more detail in this video segment where he talks about the conversation that he says he had directly with her.
She went on a blind date one night with a guy, and she called me a couple of days later and said that she would come see me and let me meet him, and she never showed up.
Quote, if someone does have her, if someone is holding her against her will, let her go, said Beatty. I can promise you I'm not going to give up looking for her, and I'm not going to stop. I'm going to follow every lead. Investigators said she and her family had some type of disagreement prior to her disappearance. They said they are concerned about the case and multiple detectives are assigned to it. They say Donna had no cell phone to trace for a location or credit cards, and that she is known to hang out with an unsavory crowd. Detectives said there is no evidence at this moment to suggest foul play or to support the notion Donna met up for a blind date. That is weird to me. I don't know why we have the authorities saying that they can't even confirm this blind date that she supposedly went on. And that one statement alone would certainly throw a lot of suspicion towards her family and her father, because now we're looking at a very simple breakdown of who's the last person that is known to have interacted with her. And it's him. And what type of interaction did they have? And it seems like, according to information that we're reviewing, that they were likely arguing. As a matter of fact, he admits to the fact that they were having an argument. So I get why people are kind of looking at him sideways. I've also found a comment where her family says that they took her to Walmart and they had bought her a cell phone recently. So by all other accounts, it seems like there should have been a cell phone on her. Her family says they traced her Google location history. I believe it was Google. It might have been Apple now that I think about it. But they traced her location history. They can see that on the night of her supposed date, she had made multiple stops. They kind of allude to the fact that maybe she was dealing drugs during all this. Why is this a question? And if she did have a phone, why aren't police using that for specifically to trace her location? I really don't get this whole angle to this case. It's a big hole in this case, and I can't believe that it hasn't been cleared up. There's enough press around this case that someone should have cleared up this issue. But I can tell you from looking at multiple discussion threads on this, it's not cleared up at this point. Another article at Cron, missing Splendora woman's father says unsolved case is, quote, tearing my life apart. This is from June 9th, 2017. Lieutenant Scott Spencer, spokesperson for the sheriff's office, quote, we have no new information and have nothing to suggest she has been harmed. The detective has checked into every aspect of the case, but has had no luck. Initially, it was reported that Cloud had gone on a date with an unknown male. However, law enforcement has been unable to corroborate that claim. With each passing day, Beatty's hope for a good outcome erodes. I'm starting to believe she's not out there, that she is not okay, he said. Part of me just wants to find her, just to get closure. I know it's only been 7 months, but it's tearing my life apart. Beatty says he is angry and feels that not enough is being done to find his daughter. I've written both of our U.S. senators from Texas and the governor and asked that they form a missing person task force. The agencies don't have the resources to devote enough time to missing persons cases. They get handed over to detectives who are overloaded with violent crime cases, and other things take priority. While that might be the case with other agencies, Spencer, the spokesperson, said it's not an accurate opinion of the sheriff's office. Quote, the detective who is working the case is in constant communication with her grandmother. Some of the family members have hurt our investigation more than they have helped. They logged into her social media accounts that we could have used to develop leads, Spencer said. We get that they are frustrated, we get that they are upset, but we are doing everything we can to find her. According to Spencer, the sheriff's office is still considering the possibility that she might have voluntarily walked away from her family, a claim her father vehemently denies. So here again, we're starting to get language from them. Now we're getting language from them that the family has hurt the investigation by logging into her social media accounts. I don't understand why that would necessarily hurt the info unless in particular they had logged into her social media accounts and were deleting posts, unfriending people. And I would seriously question if they were doing that. And if they were doing something like that, wouldn't you start investigating in that direction, that maybe they had some potential involvement? This is a really weird status for this case to be in. We kind of have the sheriff's office making comments that make it sound like they don't want to help certain members of this family, even to the point of why are they in contact with the grandmother about this case if she was actually living with her father and stepmother? Why aren't they the main point people for this case? So something very strange is going on here. Of course, outside of that, we've talked about this on the channel numerous times. When cases go on for this length of time, the family gets frustrated. That is a fairly normal occurrence. They feel like not enough is being done. But even to that point here, the sheriff's office is saying, no, we've got plenty of resources to handle this. It's just that the information has basically been so badly damaged, we can't. We don't know which way to go next. But now I ask you to consider that big question we were just talking about the cell phone. Does she have a cell phone or not? If she does, then trace it. At abc13.com, woman claims thief taunted boy before stealing raffle jar at missing woman's fundraiser. Isn't that is like one of the worst titles I have ever read. I'm not talking about how it's written. I mean about what it's written about. You're having an event for a missing person, a fundraiser, and someone steals a bunch of money from a raffle jar there. And this is from June 11th, 2018. This is fairly recent. Family and friends have spent the past months raising money to increase her Crime Stoppers reward money. It's currently valued at $1,000. They hope cash might help spur information and ultimately break Donna's case. Yesterday, they held a bake sale and raffle outside the Academy store in New Caney. Someone stole the raffle jar with hundreds of dollars in it. Family friend Randy Strickland said her son saw the man responsible. She said the thief taunted her son earlier inside the Academy. Literally, I turned around for a second and my son was screaming that they took the money, said Strickland. He had followed my child around, talking about what we were doing was pointless because we were going to find her dead anyway. I really hope they track down this person. I hope that this Academy place that they were at maybe has cameras. Maybe someone's got footage of this guy, or maybe people were using cell phone cameras to take pictures of this event. This blows my mind. Just the theft blows my mind in one way, but to know this is the same guy that would say something like that at this type of event, it really makes me wonder if this guy was worried about them raising enough money to actually get some tips to come in. It would certainly seem like that from the outset. DonnaKCloud.com. I believe this is the official website, but unfortunately there's no about section to tell us who's really posting this. But it is a pretty good website in terms of having the basics of the case, who you need to contact. Of course, I have contact information in the description box below. But there's a couple things I wanted to note here. First of all, I know we kind of touched on this before, but Donna K leaves behind a young son and a family wondering where she is and if she is safe. This is a weird statement, and I don't know how literal this is, but in terms of them retelling the story here, it's saying that the blind date that she went on was actually a contact through mutual friends, but she didn't mention any names. They're saying that she turned on her location tracker and left. She was traveling between Conroe and Houston from 8 p.m. to 1 a.m. on October 27th. When she fell off the grid in the West Chase area of Houston. Now, according to the information that her father spoke about in the video interviews, he said that she made something like 30 stops. And like I said before, there was this heavy assumption that she might have been dealing drugs in doing all these stops. Of course, I don't have any other independent sources for this, so I can't tell you if that's true or not. But the way this is phrased on this page here, that she turned on her location tracker, is very bizarre to me. If she had it on previously, it's one thing. And if she was concerned about meeting up with this guy that she didn't know, why didn't she tell someone who he was, where they were going, make some type of safety phone call or have something set up so that, she could make sure she was in a safe situation. It's really bizarre to me that if she was concerned about her own personal security like this, that's the only step that she would have done is to turn on her location tracker. And what's bizarre about it to me is if I consider a different situation where someone is trying to make it look like she was still alive during a period where she wasn't, something you might do there is kick on the location tracker and take it around a bunch of places and make that appear to be her movement. Another theory that is being kicked around in discussion threads on that is all those potential stops. Is that people getting rid of evidence? Is that people even potentially dropping off parts of her at different locations? I know that's a really terrible, terrible thing to say and a terrible way to put it, but it's just there's several people that are talking about it, and I have to kind of question it myself because of the odd things that I'm seeing around the conversations here. I've already told you guys, we've got kind of the father talking about things in one direction. We have a PI going in a completely different direction. We have the police kind of leaning towards the PI's interpretation of what's going on here, at least elements of what they're saying supporting that as well. I even kind of put a list together of, what's wrong with this case? Why am I looking into this case and feeling like I'm being lied to? And especially coming from the point of view that I was, which was originally that, I understand internet trolls, I understand cyberbullying and all that, and I understand that the family is really, really piping up about some bad things that have happened to them online. And especially with me having a sensitivity to that, why am I still having trouble believing them? It's really, really tough. Some of the things that bother me. They described her in a way to suggest that she had fallen into drug use. They started talking about bad people that she was hanging out with now, and that her, the way that she was acting was kind of changing. Basically, it's almost like if there was 3 bullet points that you could say to convince someone that your child was doing drugs. They said those 3 bullet points, but they didn't come flat out and say, we know that she was doing drugs. But when they're talking about the location history and all the different stops that it made, the assumption seems to be fairly clear that they are assuming that she was in some way possibly doing drug runs. They even talked about an instance where I believe some friends of hers had a large amount of meth that they were busted with. Once again, just kind of supporting this theory that she might have been doing these drug runs. You have the weird lashing out when she is supposedly found and then that being retracted. Guys, I've spoken to a lot of family members, even more than have appeared on the channel, and parents in particular. I don't see them act like this. And I'm not saying that I'm the end all be all and that I have all the experience in the world when it comes to this. I'm just saying these particular parents in that particular interview made me feel one way. And then when I looked at the actual information and I'm seeing that it doesn't really line up with what they were presenting, I'm having trouble. Quite honestly, most of the time when I talk to parents, it's almost like they have rose-colored glasses on when it comes to talking about their children, that their children could do no wrong. Even when I'm talking to parents of known kids that are struggling with drug addictions, they'll say, yeah, I know he was doing heroin, but he certainly wasn't dealing. It's almost like, they're trying to preserve the memory of this person and keep it pristine. In this case, I don't feel like that at all. It almost feels to the contrary, where the family is actually kind of dirtying up the perception of Donna, and that makes me feel kind of strange. He wrote this big open letter, and it does touch on the fact that she's missing. It does express what I think is some emotion about her missing, but it feels like the majority of the letter is actually almost trying to get the public to feel sorry for him because of the cyberbullying that's been going on, because of the PI that seemingly did him wrong. And I do have to admit, the way that message was written was pretty crappy. The open letter just left me feeling like its focus wasn't necessarily about her disappearance, but more about the grief that they've gone through around her disappearance, if that makes sense. And, yes, people are different. People are going to focus on different things when they're going through stuff like this. But when I've talked to parents, it's never been difficult to get them to focus on the actual details of the case. And admittedly, I'm not interviewing this guy here, so I can't say that he's really moving off topic like that. I can just say that if I was going to take the time to put together this big open letter and try to address all this nonsense I've gone through, I probably would have focused much more on just making it clear, which he does touch on, but I would have probably ended it at this, made it clear that she is still missing. Even if you've seen a poster that says that she's found safe, it is not true. We are still concerned about her. Here are the known facts. We know that she left at this time of night. We know that it's with someone that we're unfamiliar with, and then just left it at that. And instead, this thing goes on and on and on about all the different cyberbullying and the GoFundMe and all that stuff that's kind of, is it related to the case? Maybe. Does it help move the case forward? Not at all. And is it shifting attention away from elements of the conversation that could help them move the case forward? Yes. Look, I've looked into other cases where I felt like people's social media presence has not been helpful to the case. I feel like we have that type of situation going on here. That in itself is also going to raise suspicion. Just keep in mind when you're trying to ask for help in these types of things, the image that you're putting out there becomes a part of that. And it becomes really hard to want to help people that you can't trust. And if they're not really good about their social media image, even if they don't think that they're really, even if they're just on Facebook and they're not really considering that like, them being some kind of big social media star or something, it kind of is nowadays. You have to realize that overall public persona is going to get scrutinized, particularly in a case like this. And if you give people a reason to question you, they're going to question you. And that is just all over this case in a very bad way. Once again, turning on the location service before she goes on the date, but not really doing anything to truly protect herself, like let people know where she is. I didn't even touch on the fact that her family says they actually found her wallet later. So she literally left everything behind, including her ID, any type of extra clothes, her wallet, her payment cards, all that stuff the family found after the fact. It was left behind. Yet she's going on this kind of 2-day date, staying over with this guy, and she doesn't even have a change of clothes. Just there's a lot of bizarre questions. On top of that, when we're talking about the location service, then we talk about the father, tracing IP locations and, that just the way that he talks about tracing the IP locations suggests to me that someone is actually jumping on Wi-Fi. If you don't believe what the father is saying, if you think, let's take him out of the equation. Let's say that someone else had harmed her and was trying to fake this. What I would expect to see is the location service be turned on recently, like somewhere in the time frame of her disappearing. We have that happening here. Which, yes, you can kind of pop it on and off, admittedly, but I think most people, when they first get their phone, they kind of make the decision, am I going to have this thing tracking my location or not? And they kind of hit that slider and that's that. But yes, admittedly, you can pop it on and off. But let's assume I'm the bad guy here. I'd turn on the location service. I'd drive it around. But more than that, if I wanted to prove to people maybe that police weren't doing their job right, or if I really wanted to throw people off the trail and make information public that the police likely wouldn't, for example, if they were looking at ping history and they were getting a trail that they were following, I've never seen a case where they've been very open about ping history. Maybe the last known location, but that's about it. But if I wanted to confuse the case, all of a sudden I'd make sure that thing is jumping on Wi-Fi, because it's fairly easy for people to at least do IP traces and try to find out what the general location for those IPs are. And then all of a sudden I go talk to the press and say, I've got these 30 locations where bam, 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 looked like she was bouncing all around. Hey, I think she was doing drugs. Just, it bothers me that the elements of manipulating this case fit far too easily. I'm not saying that's what's going on here. I'm just saying, based on the information I'm seeing, the way that it's being presented, those elements are really sticking out to me. And I came from a position of not believing that I was going to find that type of information. And unfortunately, it kind of kept thunking me in the head with every point. It was just like, oh, there's another one. There's another one. Maybe these cyber bullies are not as crazy as we're being told that they are from the family. And keep in mind, guys, this is me realizing there's a very good chance members of this family are going to see this video. Look, guys, we want to help you. That's the whole point of doing this video. But to do that, we need to get to the truth in this case. And we can't even answer a simple question of did she have a cell phone or not? It's just, it's mind-blowing. And then we get all these kind of things that are going on that are just strange. Flipping on the location history, I don't know. I'm really, really struggling with that. On top of that, the information that was presented from her family states that she was fighting with people online all the time and that she had received serious threats. Once again, if I was going to manipulate people to try to get heat off myself, that is something I would definitely be throwing out there. Now, when it's social media, sure, it's easy enough for people to go and verify. Was that really happening or not? So the way I see it, we've got a couple of theories here. Abducted by a blind date, theory number one, kind of the main story. Do I see enough information to really support that? We've got the police basically saying that they can't corroborate that. So I'm really struggling with that theory just right off the bat. Did she run away from her life? That is kind of the point of view of the private investigator. He thinks that she's fine. She's out there. She just had to get away, that this fight that she had with her father was just too much for her. She left a kid behind. I know there's a lot of people out there that say, well, no one would ever leave a kid behind. You know what? The truth is we look into some cases and it does occasionally happen. She's 19 years old. I don't think it's impossible. Outside of that, is there some potential that her father or family could be involved in her disappearance in some way? I did not expect to bump into so many things that made me feel weird about this case. And unfortunately, I did. And it just really muddies up looking at this case from trying to be unbiased, because I kind of started in a position of being biased and thinking, oh my God, these people have been through all this terrible stuff. And then as I started looking into the details, it's like, well, wait a second. The terrible stuff that they've been through is actually quite understandable with the way the spokespeople from the sheriff's department have been talking, the way that traditional media, not social media, straight up, ABC, Cron, the way that they've been repeating that information. It seems completely understandable to me why people have been thinking about this potential theory. And keep in mind, that's the true last person that we can verify had contact with her. Do we even know if the contact was real after that? Well, this is where that phone call with the grandfather really gets to me. He said in live PD that he spoke to her. If he really spoke to her on the phone, then we're truly looking back at option number one. If he didn't really speak to her on the phone, if it was really another text message, then the possibility that she wasn't around that weekend at all gets increased dramatically. But unfortunately, it's really hard to clear up these questions. I'm really not even sure how you would go about it outside of having another private investigator come in here and start cleaning up some of these questions. And I can see, why they might not want to. I mean, just after my review on this, I'm almost kicking myself for like, is this a case I should have even covered? But ultimately what it comes down to is a woman that's missing and a child that's missing his mother. Even if you do think the family's involved in some way, there are people that are hurting in this that do deserve to find where Donna is. And I'm hopeful that this video might help with that, regardless of whatever the truth is in this case. And I do have a question, even in terms of how the sheriff's department is handling this. We've got her missing for well over a year now. Seems like the police members are being pretty open that part of the family seems to be hurting the investigation, but they're still saying that we don't have any real proof of foul play going on here. Well, we've got her missing. We have inconsistent statements at a minimum coming from the family. We have them taking steps that you say are harming your investigation. At what point do we say there's enough going on here where it could be foul play? Maybe you don't, hit the check mark and say, okay, this one's definitely foul play. I understand that you don't have a potential crime scene. I understand that you're not finding her blood in a trunk or something like that. But isn't there enough strangeness around this whole case that it really could be looked at and at least considered in a foul play scenario and investigated more in that direction? After just looking through what I've looked through today, I certainly feel like that. So on top of all the sources down below, there is also a good thread on Web Sleuths, as well as a really good thread on Reddit that I'm going to include in the links below. I always look for what can we learn in these cases. And with this one, it's so tough because I'm so confused as to what the truth is. But if we look at the basic version of this story, It's about a woman that goes on a date and doesn't come back. And ABC 13 wrote up a piece specifically hitting it from that type of angle. They do mention Donna K. Cloud in here as well, but it's really about staying safe while searching for that special someone. Houston's matchmakers weigh in on how to be safe and sensible while searching for that special someone. Megan Daly, matchmaker with Rose Matchmaking, says she'll tell friends when, where, and with who she goes on dates, but not before doing her due diligence. Creep on them on social media. See what kind of person they are. If they don't really have a profile, that's a little weird these days. When somebody doesn't, that's a red flag. Samira Sullivan, CEO of Lasting Connections, says there's a lot of catfishing out there, so when people are emailing you, have substantial conversation, but within 3 or 4 emails, find out what their first and last name is. Where do they work? Look up their LinkedIn profile. If you've already exchanged 3 or 4 emails within the first week, get on the phone with them, see if they're real. When it does come time for the first date, Sullivan says to stick to a public place and try to do something quick in the middle of the day. Don't ask guys to pick you up. Don't give someone your address and where you live on a first day. Don't invite them over if you haven't seen them and you've just met them online, which I think is really good advice. And quite honestly, if this is a situation where Donna truly disappeared on a blind date, I really wish that someone would have got this information to her sooner. All right, everyone, that is the end of the episode. What do you guys think? Let's talk about it in the comments below. And of course, we are going to review comments from last week. Before we do the comments on last week, I did just want to share one quick update about last week's case. That's the case of Bellamy Gamboa. This is from WTKR.com. Virginia Beach, Virginia. The family of Bellamy Gamboa, the missing Virginia Beach mom who was last spotted July 1st, is holding a candlelight vigil. Gamboa turned 40 on Monday. That was July 16th. And her family says they are not giving up. The gathering took place inside a clubhouse where family and friends sang, prayed, and celebrated Gamboa. Her 2 teenagers attended the event. Charisse and the Johnson family didn't want Gamboa's toddler-aged twins attending. I think that's probably a good idea. Over the weekend, loved ones continued to search for Gamboa, holding search parties. So it's unfortunate. It would have been nice for her to have been found before her birthday. That's kind of something I was hoping for, and I mentioned in the episode last week. But unfortunately, that did not occur. It's nice to hear that they held a vigil and that they're still working on this. Just my heart goes out to them on this case. This is really terrible. You got 4 kids looking for their mom there. Let's get to some comments on this case. Clint Bandura. At 13 minutes, the article says she left, not he. You misread it. Clint, you're absolutely right. And several of you guys let me know about that. Thank you. But what that does is raises the question of how did he get such a wide time frame for when he last saw her then? Now we know that he was actually there. Admittedly, I guess he could have been, sitting in the bedroom, like in a completely different room in the house or something along those lines. But it just kind of hits me strange that, you're having an argument with a loved one, they go missing, and maybe you don't notice it for up to an hour and a half. I don't know. I just think in one way, yeah, it clarifies one thing, but it heightens a question, the question of that time frame in another. Constrictor Eli Projects. This is my aunt. It's difficult seeing my family in heartbreak. Follow Bring Bellamy Home on Facebook. Constrictor Eli Projects, I am so sorry that your family is going through this. And for any of you out there that do use Facebook, please follow Bring Bellamy Home. Kathy Petty, maybe she and her boyfriend were fighting because of something she's gotten involved in that he doesn't agree with. Our minds always go to the worst case scenario when we hear fight, but I haven't read anything on this myself yet. It's just strange she would say she's scared for her life and not tell someone who to look at if she does come up missing. Or she has, and the police already have a suspect to watch. I hope they find her for her children's sake. Kathy, that's a really good point. And we do hear about this kind of in cases frequently. Someone that's afraid for their life, but for some reason, the person that they're afraid of, that information doesn't get passed on. I know the way that this information was presented in the media, the family's really not talking about what those threats were or how they were presented. So I would like to think that your hunch might be right, that that information might have been passed on to law enforcement. Maybe they're already working that lead. Hopefully they're already trying to collect evidence and maybe lining up, warrants or even a potential booking is what I'm really hoping for. But really good point on that. Zoroaster112. I think that the biggest lead we have in this is the text sent by Bellamy about being fearful for her life. I think the police should interview everyone they can to obtain more information about that. The key question is, why was she fearful for her life? Was she fearful of her boyfriend? Was she fearful of a friend or acquaintance of herself or her boyfriend? Or was she fearful because she lived in a somewhat dangerous area? I don't know. I do feel that if we had more details about that, we would probably know where to look. It could have been a crime of opportunity. We can't rule that out. But her texts about being fearful beforehand lead me to believe there is something more at play. I hope and pray she comes home soon. Really good point there, and I kind of agree with you. This is one of those cases where we're hearing that there's a fire, and we're also hearing that there might have been smoke before that, and it's hard to say that those things aren't necessarily related. There's a possibility they're not related, certainly, but if she's talking to family members about the fact that she was afraid for some reason and then all of a sudden she goes missing, I think you guys know what lead I would be working first, and I'm pretty sure that the investigators on this are considering that as well. Michelle Sims, update. The FBI has now officially gotten involved in her case. Hopefully that turns out to be what brings this case to a positive close. I truly hope so. I did hear that as well. From what I understand, the FBI is involved, but it is in a support-only capacity, which kind of based on what I've seen can have varying results. It basically means that the local law enforcement is still in charge of the case, but the FBI is there to offer whatever assistance they might need. Not quite the same as the FBI actually taking over a case, which does happen occasionally, particularly if it's a case that crosses state lines. But it doesn't quite look like this case is at that yet. New supporters sending money through PayPal. Amir Anwar. Thank you so much, Amir. June Queen. Thank you, June. And Debbie Williams. Thank you, Debbie. Also, Trevor Ritter, all sending in donations on PayPal. Thank each and every one of you very much. Over at Patreon, we have new patrons, Cheryl Lynn Caitlin. Hello, Cheryl Lynn. Thank you. And Andrew Vaccaro. Hey, Andrew, what's up? Thank you guys for your support. I can't do it without you. All right, everyone, that's it. Thank you so much for spending some time with me here on Searchlight, and please come back. Actually, I'm going to have a video for you guys tomorrow. Bonus video tomorrow, a mini scratch update. Really tragic turn on the Caroline Small case. Although I guess now we're talking more about Corey Sasser. The name of tomorrow's video is Corey's Final Crime. Corey Sasser's Final Crime. I hope you guys will check that out. Take care, everyone. I'll see you there.